Washington, D.C. is a safe place right now. Now we're in Memphis. We're doing the same thing in Memphis. And we're going to Chicago. You know, we have a governor that thinks it's wonderful when 50 people in a short period of time were murdered in Chicago. Over 200 people were hit. And so we send in the National Guard. You know what? We send in what's ever necessary. People don't care. They don't want crime in their cities. And we're doing it, and we're doing it well. We're doing it like nobody's ever done it before.
That was President Trump in Norfolk, Virginia yesterday, marking the Navy's 250th anniversary with a partisan campaign rally-style event that drew widespread criticism. Joining us now, California Attorney General Rob Bonta. He filed the lawsuit that led to the judge's decision to block the deployment of California Guard troops to Oregon. Mr. Attorney General, thank you so much for joining us. As Joe's been saying, the courts had a busy weekend in terms of the National Guard. First of all, let's just start right there. Your reaction to the decision last night.
We were grateful and gratified, and the arguments that we made, the court adopted them and issued a second order in 2 days, a second restraining order, the first on Saturday, saying that the deployment of the Oregon National Guard and their federalization was unlawful. And then the next day, within 24 hours, when it was still unlawful to have National Guards people in Oregon, the Trump administration tried to send 300 of California's National Guard 1,000 miles north from L.A. to Portland. And the judge honestly was miffed and beside herself and wondering how the federal administration could deploy National Guard to Oregon when just the day before she said it was unlawful. So, this is Trump being contemptuous of the law, blatantly and brazenly violating it, acting like the National Guard is his royal guard, his own private army and private police force, trying to deploy them around the country where he wants, when he wants, for whatever reason he wants. It is unlawful, it is wrong, and it needs to stop in the court. The court order yesterday was a good first step.
Elise, this judge must be like some left-wing Marxist appointed by Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Probably went, oh, wait a second, it was a Trump judge.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a woman, too, unlike Stephen Miller, didn't seem to know that last night. Can you imagine how angry you would be if you're a governor and your National Guard is being sent on a BS pretense to another state?
Right, so let's explain for people that didn't follow the bouncing ball all weekend.
Yeah.
It started, Oregon's National Guard was stopped by the federal judge. So then the president decided to go to the California National Guard, which had already been federalized. And I had read it's already sent 100 up to Oregon. I don't know if that ended up being accurate or not. But then the judge stepped in again late last night and said, nope.
Now we're joined by Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield. Mr. Attorney General, thanks for taking the time. So the White House, we know, is now asking the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals for an emergency pause on this order by the district judge that's paused, in effect, all of the National Guard troop deployments, whether it's from the Oregon National Guard or California or Texas. The White House argues that the district court has impermissibly second-guessed the president's military judgments. Are you confident this district ruling will be upheld?
I mean, the way you got to mention this and think about it is that this was a judge appointed by President Trump. This is an incredibly well-founded judge and well-researched judge as she went through and looked at the facts on the ground. And the facts are just that. The military is not needed in Portland, Oregon. In fact, in America, just using the United States military in our cities is not normal. And so we do expect, and this procedural ruling, because that's what it would be, a Ninth Circuit procedural ruling, we do expect the Ninth Circuit to deny the president's request and allow this case to continue moving forward.
President Trump claims there are paid insurrectionists at these ICE protests in Portland. What is he talking about?
It's a really darn good question. You know, when I got out of law school, I started doing community theater, and I think the president would give me a run for my money. The fact remains that the judge had an opportunity to hear all the facts from both sides. And the best that the federal government could do was present facts from the president's own Truth Social Truth Social media. So that's the type of facts that the federal government is working with. We're using real facts in a courtroom, and that's why the judge sided with us. The president just doesn't get off of a helicopter, walk out of the White House, and just make things up. If you're going to do that, you don't get to deploy the military using those types of fake facts. You actually have to have real facts if you want to put the military on the streets of our cities.
The president's deputy chief of staff, Stephen Miller, accused this Trump-appointed judge of legal insurrection. So now we're hearing that word a second time. What do you make of them repeatedly throwing around that word insurrection as it relates to those who push back on the administration?
That's incredibly dangerous rhetoric in a democracy, especially when you have a president who appears to be normalizing the use of the military on our American cities. I was incredibly offended when the president says that this judge is not working for me. I was like, has this man never read the United States Constitution? Does he not understand what having an independent judiciary means? No judge, and it doesn't matter who the heck they are, should ever serve any politician. That's offensive, and it doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. You should have some significant red flags in your head when you hear a president saying that, and then when they're attacking the free press, when they're attacking our elections and trying to put the military on our streets. That is un-American, and it has to stop.
What is your view of an out-of-state leader like Texas Governor Greg Abbott basically raising his hand to get involved in your state's affairs and to send in his state's National Guard troops?
This is something that's common sense. So if we start thinking about it, it's like, oh, National Guard troops from another state coming into another state, maybe that makes sense. But now think about it, about your state, the state that you live, and your rights when you have another governor or another state trying to interfere in your own state when a judge, a federally appointed judge, has said there's absolutely no need. It really crosses some stringent boundaries that we've set as a nation. This agreement of 50 states coming together to form the United States. It's wild what's going on in our country right now. I'm patently offended by that. And again, a tremendous amount of credit to the federal district court judge who has kept a really level head and trying to just look at the facts on the ground and say, there isn't a need for the military. You need to stop. And the president's being incredibly cute with this, right? Oh, you can't use the Oregon National Guard. Well, maybe I'll try the California National Guard. Oh, if I can't use the California Guard, now I'll try the Texas National Guard. The reality is there is no need for the military on the streets of our cities here in Oregon. And the judge was very clear when she made her order.
Democratic governors have been sounding the alarm on these troop deployment plans, and California's Governor Newsom wrote this. This is a breathtaking abuse of the law and power by the president. America is on the brink of martial law. And it's not just politicians. This very same federal judge, in her initial ruling blocking Trump on Saturday, wrote, this is a nation of constitutional law, not martial law. And of course, this is all after President Trump suggested that the nation's top military leaders should use American cities as training grounds. Is it hyperbolic or alarmist to say President Trump's goal is martial law?
I'm not going to do that either.
It makes no sense. So, Attorney General, what I want to ask you, what's your next step here? How do you see this proceeding, and how do you fight this? Because if I'm a governor and my troops get sent to another state on this pretense, I would be pretty angry.
Absolutely. And I'll first say that Trump appointee Judge Emmergut is a true public servant, looked at the law, looked at the facts, called it like she saw it, let the chips fall where they may. Of course, they fell in our favor because they should, because that's what the law and that's what the facts dictated. We have a 14-day restraining order for now. We're moving towards a hearing on a preliminary injunction, as well as a full trial on the merits towards the end of this month, October 29th. So we'll get a more permanent decision then. If the conditions don't change, then we don't expect the court's ruling to change. Of course, the judge will decide. But we will continue to press our position here, which is that California has state sovereignty. The California National Guard should be in the command of the Commander-in-Chief of the California National Guard. That's California Governor Gavin Newsom. They should not be deployed 1,000 miles northward. That is disrespectful to them. We need them tackling wildfires and fentanyl trafficking in California. So we're going to continue to push this case. Another part of the bouncing ball is that the Texas National Guard is waiting in the wings to be deployed to Portland and to Chicago, 400 of them. And so an important part of Judge Immergut's order last night was that no National Guard from any state can be federalized and deployed to Portland, just to make it clear to the federal administration, who didn't seem to understand that when her initial decision was regarding the Oregon National Guard, and then they brought in the California National Guard the next day.
I mean, again, this is a Trump-appointed judge. And I do wonder at what point the Supreme Court stops pushing this off and starts saying what the Constitution says.
Yeah.
This is clear cut. There should not be this ambiguity. The Supreme Court keeps kind of pushing things down to lower courts. They need to clearly say, it's not hard, guys and gals, not hard. Just read the law, read the Constitution. It's unambiguous. You could really make things a lot cleaner and clearer for Americans.
California Attorney General Rob Bonta, thank you. We'll be following what's happening there. We appreciate it.
Donald Trump has once again crossed a line that no president in a working democracy should ever approach, treating the U.S. military as if it were his personal police force. Listening to him brag in Norfolk about sending in the National Guard to different cities, you'd think he was describing like a business he owns, not a country bound by constitutional law. He spoke proudly about deploying troops to Memphis and Chicago as if it were some kind of victory tour. That shows a man who views force as power and control, not as a last resort guided by responsibility and forethought. Trump's actions here go far beyond politics. They violate the law, and that's just basic. They're wrong. A federal judge appointed by Trump himself had to step in twice in 2 days to stop his administration from deploying the National Guard into states that never authorized it. First Oregon and then California. And when the first ruling came down, the administration just ignored it and tried again the next day with troops from another state, like a child testing different keys on a locked door. That's how effective the judges are in this. And that judge there was chosen by Trump, yet even she couldn't believe the level of contempt and just workaround the White House showed for the law. They'll just do anything to break it or go around it. Trump has always seen loyalty as something personal, not institutional. To him, the National Guard exists to follow his commands, ready to march wherever he points. That kind of thinking goes directly against democratic principles. That's authoritarian. Governors hold authority over their guard units unless a true national emergency demands federal action. Trump simply decided that protests and local crime rates gave him that right. Someone probably showed him some pictures of smoke and protesters against ICE, and he thought that the city was on fire or something. The courts rejected this invasion of the city because the Constitution clearly limits presidential power in those situations. But even more alarming is how casually he toys with the idea of martial law. When he talks about using American cities as training grounds for the military, or when his officials accuse judges of legal insurrection for enforcing the law, it reveals how little respect he has for democratic norms. He's making people comfortable with this use of military force to settle his political disputes. That kind of behavior reflects an authoritarian mindset. Trump continues to act like the rule of law is optional for him, a suggestion that can just be ignored when it gets in his way. The irony is sharp. A man who constantly complains about lawlessness in cities for the reason that he has to invade is the one showing no regard for the law at all himself. The governors of Oregon and California never requested his troops. Their courts said no, yet Trump pressed forward, driven by ego and control rather than justice or safety. This moment carries real weight. It's more than a dispute over troop deployment or a single court order. It's another step and a test of whether Americans still believe in boundaries that no president, no matter how powerful or self-assured, has the right to use soldiers as personal props for political theater. Once a leader starts sending troops into cities under his own command, democracy stops being something we protect. It just becomes something we've surrendered.